Hey, 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 can everybody hear me all right? I didn't check the audio between the last show and this show. Kat made it in. Hey Vicky, what's up? Hello Allison Lee. What's going on, Petunia? I see a few new names in here. Make sure you hit that sub button and select whatever level on the bell you want. Just make sure it's the one where you get reminded. Hello Bonnie. Texaholic, what's up? Nana Banana. I have to say, after the show we did this morning and the comments were off the chain, it's a wonder that YouTube will let us even have a show. That was wild. You guys had me in stitches. Wow. Anybody that had just come into that chat, they would have been like, there's something really wrong with you guys. I don't know if I want to hang with you all. But anyway, it was a great show. And it gets us up to speed for trial. Tell you what, I wish there was another trial coming up, and that would be a trial for somebody in relation to the disappearance of Kyron Horman. Look how long it's been. As it sits, he's a grown man. Some people say, well, then he should be able to get away from his captors. Well, I mean, if he's got a heavy dose of Stockholm Syndrome, he wouldn't. It's happened. Sean Hornback, I mean, other people were around him. He never said a word. Elizabeth Smart wouldn't tell people who she was. J.C. Dugard was afraid to say anything. Stranger things have happened. Divine said, where is Scotty Morris? I wish I knew. And there was not any updates overnight. You know, I've had my stomach in knots over that. Big time. So I really don't know. Let's take a poll. What do you think? Who do you think is responsible for Kyron's disappearance? Mermaid just said, oops. Mermaid, I mailed your package today. It's supposed to arrive on Monday. I was going to email you, but this is much, much easier. Mermaid said Terry. A lot of people said Terry. A lot of people say Terry and Dede. I had a lot of comments saying Kyron was handed to Dede. And then Terry's running all these silly errands to give herself an alibi. Then goes home, posts the science fair picture. And then there's a lot of people that say Will Smith style all at once. They go, get Terry's name out your mouth. They get so pissed if you bring up Terry. And it's like, listen, she's a big part of this case, whether you like it or not. So we talked about a couple weeks ago, we basically made a majority decision that we would break this up into segments because there's so much in this case to talk about. And my God, going back through it, there's so much stuff I forgot. I would love for the Cold Case Foundation to get a hold of this. I would love it. This was sent to me the other day. I'm going to share with you guys real quick. This was posted by Kyron's mama. She said, feeling anxious and optimistic about my meeting this week. The new sheriff is great to take the time to sit down with Kyron's mama. The DA won't even give me that respect. Shame on that district attorney. Shame on him. He not only owes it to the family of Kyron Horman, he owes it to his district. There is a child that went missing from your district. You guys should be working your asses off to solve this. She said, I'm praying that my words have an impact and help Kyron. Secretly, I'm talking to Kyron so that he can help us move forward. Sometimes it takes a village, and I'm praying for a village today. Let's bring this home, whatever that outcome means for us. Lord, help us, please. That DA should be beyond ashamed. Beyond. I've been following this since the Jane Velez Mitchell and Nancy Grace days. And it was on TV every single night. Every night. The look on Nancy Grace's face when this flyer started circulating. I thought she was going to have a cow. Because you don't see a flyer like this every day. You got pictures of Terry. You got pictures of Dede. You got pictures of the truck. You got Radio Gaga coming in saying hi all. And it's the truth. You don't see flyers like that. If that wouldn't make you lose your mind, I don't know what wouldn't. But either way, neither of these women gave anything of substance to law enforcement to help find Kyron. We know that Dede totally refused to even answer questions. Terry lawyered up. And most of the times I would say, yeah, that's what you do. Just like in the last show, I said, this chick needs to shut up. She needs to get a lawyer. She needs to just shut up. She's doing the work of the state for the state. She just handed them everything. So in most cases, I'm like, oh yeah, get a lawyer. But when you want a child found, particularly if you love the child the way that Terry supposedly loved Kyron, you wouldn't think of buying burner phones and lawyering up. You also wouldn't think about sexting other men to pass the time. It goes on and on. And all in all said, she could still have nothing to do with it. I don't know. Have no idea. I know a few years ago, Desiree, Kyron's mom, said, we need another task force. I don't know why this DA will not go forward with it. Just because they were suspicious of Terry doesn't mean all is lost if it's not Terry. Why not get on it? I would love to see the Cold Case Foundation involved in this. I would love it. Nothing wrong with a fresh set of eyes. It's owed to Kyron, and it's owed to his family. So going through this show, we're going to start from, I'm going to show a press conference of the four of them together, as in Kane, Terry, Desiree's husband, and the fallout when they became suspicious of Terry. Terry, actually, an email was shared where Terry knew before, I think, the other three, that they were treating her and looking at her much differently than everybody else. Is it raining memberships again? Lone Wolf, thank you for the memberships. You're like Santa Claus today, Lone Wolf. All right, I'm going to go through some comments from the last show, and we have a couple of guests backstage I'm going to bring up. One is from the area, and we were talking backstage and some stuff she told me just about the area, which, you know, I love having locals up. Blew my mind. So, let's get to it. Pamela Smith said, like others here, I have followed this case from day one. He was 1 year younger than my son at the time of his disappearance. My son was also shy, had short hair, like him, same color, and wire glasses too. He also was into the same things as Kyron was, so it hit me hard. I've always felt the stepmom was involved. I never understood why Kyron's dad seemed so passive during all of this. A lot of people say that. Terry seemed like the one who ran the show. I don't know if it would have mattered, but I wish the school office would have called Kyron's dad that day to see why he was absent. Many of us do. When you realize Kyron wasn't there, somebody should have been calling. She said, I've read he was marked absent. Maybe the teacher ended up telling the attendance secretary he was at the doctor. I just can't believe a husband would be so oblivious about all of her deceit. And it shows that he was aware of Terry's bad behavior. How he allowed her around Kyron is unreal. I can't believe it's been so long. My son is now studying nuclear engineering in college, and I think of Kyron every so often. And I bet he'd be doing great things like that in the field of science or forensics at college, too. Hope he gets justice one day. My heart breaks for his mom the most. A lot of people have had a lot of questions about Kane. For one, a few days after Kyron's disappearance, Kane and Terry were seen going to the gym. People said, hang on, what are you doing going to the gym? It was on the local news. And like she said, it was like Terry was running the show. We're just going to get back to our regular routine, even though Kyron's missing. And it was odd. But things changed, and they changed dramatically when Kane was hit with certain news. Lady Susanna said she took him. He is the only person. I'm sorry, she took him. She is the only person he would have gone with. And that is a common thing that people say about Kyron, his disposition, his I am tongue-tied today, my goodness. He wouldn't go with a stranger. And as busy as that school was, how did nobody see a stranger abduct him? Jewelweed says, I hope you watch the classmates video and find the Groundskeeper video. I've got them both. She said both videos discredit a lot of the narrative. I think Terry is a despicable person. However, the school was left open. It was the end of the school year. Kyron was not the same timid little boy Desiree makes him out to be. Now, I don't know if she knew Kyron or not. So I can't say because I don't know who this woman is. He would go to the bathroom by himself, walk down the hall with friends, walk in the cafeteria. Why would Terry set up a doctor's appointment for him if she had no intention on taking him? Sounds to me she was socializing with the school staff and with a parent at the store. She went to 2 drugstores, a dry cleaner's, and the gym. Terry left the school at 8:45 a.m. However, Kyron was seen at 9 a.m. at the south entrance. There are the reason no charges on Terry because the stuff I pointed out doesn't point to Terry. Kyron needs to be found, but he won't be found if facts aren't all out there. Now, I'm going to say right now, I see exactly what she's saying, particularly with how long it's been. But I can't produce the facts because the only people that have the facts are law enforcement. And law enforcement, to me, seems like have always been looking at Terry. I do have the videos that she's talking about, and we are going to look at those. Hey, Lana, where you been, girlfriend? Now, as far as Kyron being seen at 9 a.m. at the school, that's when Terry was supposedly at Fred Meyer's. They would have never had an issue with Terry if they both were seen at 2 different places at 9 a.m. If he can be placed at school at 9 a.m. and she can be placed at Fred Meyer's at 9 a.m., well, why would they have even brought Terry up? Another thing about all of the errands that she was running, she mentioned to everyone that her daughter had an ear infection. All the mamas in here, we know what it's like when we have a child screaming with an earache. We get them home as soon as possible. we get them home with a quickness. It's not like colic where you're trying to break up a gas bubble. We get them home. But not only did she take her to 2 different Fred Meyers, and I covered the reason for the 2 different Meyers on the last show, but then she went to the gym to work out. Why would you take your sick child to the gym? I mean, hell, Terry could have done jumping jacks at the house with her daughter sleeping. So to those of us that know, that just would not happen. But that was her excuse. And I have heard before that he was seen at school at 9 a.m. Now, I have not heard that from law enforcement. There is no news article that says it that I'm aware of. But Terry's big thing is Fred Meyers, gym. Fred Meyers, gym. Okay, fine. You ran some errands. But if Kyron is seen at school at 9 a.m. and you're at Fred Meyers at 9 a.m., nobody would have ever questioned your ass about anything. Makes sense to me. Some people it doesn't make sense. And all we know is what the news outlets have put out and what little bit law enforcement has said. I can just imagine what all evidence they truly do have. But we are going to look at that video. Let's bring up our guest, Samantha. She's been working on this case forever and a day, and she lives right in that area. Hey, Samantha.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Britt Sadie said ear infection always equals antibiotics. You're exactly right. And that is one thing that was asked over and over and over. Why are you going to get Tylenol for an ear infection and not antibiotics? Make it make sense. Or at least pick up your damn Tylenol and take your baby home. Nobody drives around with a child with an ear infection. We've all dealt with ear infections, and you don't want anything moving.
Yeah, and the thing is with that Tylenol too is like we've heard Tylenol, we've heard Motrin in the book Boy Missing, and we've heard she could have been going there to get a prescription and they were out of the prescription drug, and that's why she went to the other Fred Meyers. And the thing is, we really kind of don't know exactly what she did go there for. I mean, there was a recall on Tylenol in January and the end of April, and the shelves there in June could have been empty of the Tylenol or the Motrin because it was all of the infant and children's Tylenol, Motrin, Benadryl, all that kind of stuff had been recalled. And so,
well,
we don't know what she actually was there for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, she has receipts. She made sure to keep receipts. So she has herself placed at the stores. So it better have said Tylenol or something that sounds like Tylenol on it. But the recall was in January of 2010. January of 2010.
Yeah, also at the end of April, beginning of May, which could have carried over to June. I'm not sure about that. I was kind of just investigating that actually earlier this week because, I heard somebody say something about the recall, and I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I heard that there were quite a few recalls that year. One of the plants in Pennsylvania closed down at the end of April, and they produced 70% of all of the infant ibuprofen or Motrin, Tylenol, Benadryl, and all that kind of stuff. So there was just a lot of talk. And that receipt was for $9.12. And I know in the book Boy Missing, Desiree says that it was Motrin. So it's just like everything else in this case. You hear Tylenol, you hear Motrin. I mean, you hear so many things. You don't know what's rumor. You don't know what the media's put out. You don't know what's true because everybody's been talking about this for 12 years.
Almost 13. And as far as the media's narrative, all they can do, well, I can't say all they can do unless they're a tabloid. We're not talking about TMZ, though. Locally, because, you don't want to shit where you eat. You don't want to make the police mad. You don't want to make the politicians mad. So you have to watch your P's and Q's. And so if they're saying we have a grand jury convening, or this is going on, or that's going on, or here's the flyer for Terry and Dede, that's what they report on, because that would be the news.
Yeah, you know, and while I was investigating that infants Benadryl and Tylenol, the FDA said there was no shortage. And I've heard, you know, a lot of people said that she went to that Fred Meyer's and she didn't find what she wanted because there was a shortage on this liquid medicine for infants and children. So that's why she went to the Fred Meyer's. Now, I don't know if Terry herself said there was a shortage, if that came from the media or whatnot, but the FDA said that there wasn't a shortage. They did say there was a shortage on adult medication
Well, there
at
was
the same time.
Well, there was a recall in January of 2010. I almost said 2010.
Yeah.
2010. And I can tell you, someone that deals with allergies and things like that, there was no shortage of it in Oklahoma. So I don't see why that state would be any different. But it's just another oddity of the day. So I'm going to play the press conference with the four of them, and you can see they're all four of them are together talking about Kyron's disappearance. And then we're going to get into how this unraveled.
Thank you. As you all know, this has been a very, very difficult time for the family of Kyron. And remember, this is the 1 week anniversary, which is very sensitive to us. We very quickly wanted to plan because the family wanted to talk to the news media. They're not prepared to answer any questions. But what I do want to tell you is that after this press conference, if you'd like, please meet in the back here, and we'll have Captain Brosh and Mary Lindstrom, and they'll give you a way to be able to email questions in. We'll make sure the family gets that, and they'll review some of those questions for our next meeting time. And I don't know when that is, but we'll figure that out so they can answer some of your questions, which the family knows is very important. But keep in mind, this is very difficult. Here with me today is Kane Harmon, and would you like me to spell their names? Kane, Kaine, Harmon, Horman, Terry Harmon, Terrihorman, Tony Young, Tonyyoung, and Desiree Young, Desireyyoung. And remember, they stand together here today as a family. Before I let Tony speak one of the two messages, I want to remind you, if we can get the information out about this is going to be a wonderful weekend. It's supposed to be warm. As you're out there recreating, all our families, keep your prayers and thoughts on our little boy, because you never know the type of information that can come back to us and we can find him. So with that being said, Tony, can you come on down?
Hello, my name is Tony Young, and I'm Kyron's stepfather. The family has asked me to speak on their behalf today. I would just like to say, Kyron, we miss you, we love you, and we need you home right now. We're doing everything we can to work with law enforcement and the search and the rescue crews to make sure that you can get back to us as soon as possible. We want to say how much we appreciate the outpouring of love and support, prayer and thoughts as we wait for you. Your school friends and their families, the teachers, the staff at your school, and the community as a whole have shown how much impact one little boy's smile can have on a community. You mean everything to us, and until you come home, this family is not complete. Please, Kyron, keep up the hope. We believe in you, and we know you will be back with us soon. I'd like to now introduce Kyron's father, Kane Horman.
Hi, I'm Kane. I'm Kyron's father. We want to thank the community, the parents, the children, bus drivers, and all of those who are being interviewed multiple times to help find Kyron. Thank you. We as the family know how difficult and stressful this is, but your memories and statements can help us find Kyron. We will never be able to thank you enough for that help. Finally, we would like to thank the media. If it was not for you showing Kyron on every newscast, printing his story in the papers, his face would not be known to everyone. People from around the nation have seen his picture. This helps tremendously. Please help us bring Kyron home.
I do want to thank the Brooks Hill Historic Church here today, because without this little office here, we would not be able to get our story out. And we really appreciate not only all the people out there helping us, but as this church as well. With that being said, the family's going to go ahead and leave, and I will have Captain Brosh and Lieutenant Mary Lindstrom answering to make sure that you're able to get the questions to them. Thank you.
Give us time to get this done, and I'll be there to meet you.
Okay, so you can see that all four of them are fine with each other. They're all fine with each other. Tony speaks initially, which I know some people thought that was odd. They kind of thought, well, maybe he was going to speak for all of them because they're too upset to talk. But then Kane spoke. I didn't really understand the order, but it is what it is. Now, it was very interesting when Tony spoke to Dateline, and him being a detective, he knew something was up and that the police were already treating Terry differently. Even though Desiree didn't realize it, even though Kane didn't realize it, he knew. And he said, you know, going forward, this isn't going to be about, oh, we love Kyron so much and all this stuff. He's like, and of course we do, but they have to have facts from us. And that has always been a problem, getting the correct story out of Terry. One thing that was said was I don't know if it was at the police station that night or it might have been from this press conference. And I know some people say I read too much into these things, but I do believe that when a person uses a missing person in past tense prematurely, it's very telling. And when Terry said to Desiree, I loved your son, that gave me chills. What do you think about that, Samantha?
Well, first of all, you know me just from watching Kyron Horman's Case Revisited on my Facebook and my YouTube. And I try as hard as I possibly can to look at everything, all aspects of the case. I try to find new perspectives because she's never been named a person of interest and she's never been named a suspect. Then you show me the one video and I see her in the background, and this is the video that makes me so emotional, the hug between Kyron or Kane and Tony. You know, you can just tell Kane needs that moment before he has to start talking, and it just absolutely breaks my heart. Mm-hmm. But, you know, when I look at all of this, I also have to remember that this book was written by the perspective of Desiree. And what Desiree says is that, you know, Terry Horman used past tense. And if she did, wow, that would actually really hit me hard. I mean, I'm one of those people that look into things so much, especially in something like this. I would have been trying to read into everything everybody was saying throughout the entire time of the investigation through the whole 12 years. So, yeah, I mean, what a telling statement. If Terry did say that, that would, as a mother, probably make me sick to my stomach.
Oh, it makes me absolutely ill. Makes me absolutely ill. And we were talking last week when we were going back through case information about Gannon and his stepmother, Letitia. I shouldn't even call her a stepmother, but you know. And she slipped in an interview and said Gannon was. The district attorney made note of that because he watched her interview from home. And the minute he heard her say was, he about lost it. And I understand that the police, and I'm not trying to make Terry out to be the bad guy here. I just saying it like it is. I understand that the police never made a formal statement saying she's a suspect, she's a person of interest, but she definitely had a grand jury convened for her, and she certainly knows that they have been wanting to talk to her, and they've had certain questions for her for
Oh, absolutely.
14 years.
I mean,
They wouldn't have these
I was
unless there
I
was
was one of those people that Terry did it for a very, very long time until I met a group of women in a discussion group, and someone brought up another suspect, and I just looked at it and was just like, oh, wow. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's really hard when the media, the police, everybody's talking about Terry, and even Terry and Dede putting out flyers about Terry. When the flyers in that situation, sometimes it upsets me and sometimes it doesn't, because I mean, in a way that it might upset me is, maybe if they wouldn't have made the flyers with their faces put on that, maybe other avenues could have been searched. You know what I mean?
well, they can search multiple things all at once. We never know what the police are doing because they don't tell us. But when they tell people, we need to know where these two women were and where this truck was from this time to this time. Please come forward and tell us, because we have a missing time frame here, and we need the public's help. Did you see this woman? Did you see this woman? Did you see this truck? They didn't ask about anybody else's because nobody else had, well, a motive, even though it's not a motive to me. But nobody else had the motive. Nobody else had access to him. And again, we go to the 9 a.m. If he was seen at the school at 9 a.m. and she's at Fred Meyer's at 9 a.m., they would have never had a question.
Yeah, and we don't know what that kind of information Ellie has. I mean, there was a seventh grader in his family that was questioned about him seeing Kyron. That family talked to law enforcement, and they must have had photographs or something, possibly with like a timestamp or something on it, that law enforcement wanted, and they didn't want that seventh grader or the family to come forward. There's a lot of information that they can't share with us. And then you have, the other young man that said that he passed Kyron in the hallway. The thing that bothers me, like the young man that said he saw Kyron, they talked, he told him, I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to go check out the cool electric project. And, these are young kids. I have a 7-year-old and an 8-year-old granddaughters. And I don't think either one of them can really tell me a good time. Like, I could ask them what time they ate breakfast. One of them might say 7 o'clock and the other one might say 10. So the only witness that I think could even be a little bit credible might be the seventh grader, because he's a little bit older, but we don't really know what time he's saying that he saw Kyron in the gym of the school. I want to say it was somewhere between 8:45 and 9 o'clock, but we're also going by Terry's timeline, and when she says that she left there. When did she leave? Did she leave at 8:45? Did she leave at 8:50? Did she leave closer to 9 o'clock? I've done her timeline in a video. I've left Skyline School, recorded the entire thing, drove to the first Fred Meyer's on Embry Road, and it took me around 12 minutes. And that particular day that I took that video, it was heavy traffic. So she could have gotten there anywhere, I believe, from about 8 minutes to 12 minutes. And she's got a receipt for 9:12.
Mhm.
So when did she actually leave the school?
Yeah, when did she? I don't know. I have no idea. And I just don't think I would hinge my case on what two children in an entire school would say. And the seventh grader, a lot of people have asked, what would a seventh grader be doing around the little kids? That's a,
Well, that school isn't just an elementary school. I believe it goes K through 8th grade. So it's like kindergarten through 8th grade. It has older kids and younger kids in it. Kind of a strange setup. But yeah, I mean, that's why there's a 7th grader there.
It's just it's a very crazy timeline. Okay, so as promised, this is the interview with Tanner Pomula. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Now he's a grown man now. He is a grown man. I don't know if he has spoken any more on this subject publicly. I don't mean Facebook DMs or anything like that, because that's not going to solve shit. But I mean to the police, because if somebody took Kyron.
Absolutely.
And that's an extremely busy day, extremely busy school. And it would have gone unnoticed for him just to walk out with someone that he trusts. Nobody.
Well, unless they went out the west side of the school. If you go out the doors that go down to the soccer field, you can actually walk that sidewalk. Again, that's in another one of my videos. When you're walking down that sidewalk on the west side next to the soccer field, there is a huge hillside. And when you're walking down there on that sidewalk, you can't see the front of the school. You can't see the playground. You can't see anybody up there. You could walk away with a child walking down that sidewalk and no one's going to see you unless there's someone peeping out windows during a science fair when there's 300 to 400 people running around and it's like crazy. No one's going to see anybody leave with Kyron down that walkway. And it's not just me. Several people talk about it. And I actually even found a clip from a news reporter that was talking about David Stenson and the truck situation. And she said the exact same thing that I said in my video. No one's going to see Kyron walk through here.
Would that have been something that he would have walked out of there by himself, or would it have to be somebody that he would trust and go with them? Because from what
there was a detective, Matios, actually thought maybe, let's go check over there at the pond. Maybe Tanner and Kyron took off by themselves to go look for, a little tree frog or something. And that's one of the reasons why the pond across the street from the school was searched, because he was wondering himself, did the boys just walk out of there and, go over to the pond? I mean, Kyron's already wandering around the school by himself. The thing is, did he leave with Terry, or was he wandering around the school by himself and some stranger took him?
Cat's Gallery said Kyron wouldn't leave because he needed to be at the science fair. And also we have the confusion with the doctor's appointment. The teacher believed that he had a doctor's appointment that day, but the doctor's appointment wasn't until the next week. We had a clip from a detective on the last show that said that mistake was made on purpose so that it would just be assumed he was gone that day for a doctor's appointment. Let's look at what Tanner has to say.
Old boy, a third grader, and a desk mate of Kyron Hormans has been interviewed by the FBI and was visited by Multnomah County Sheriff Dan Staton as late this afternoon. Recently, we're learning now that he may be providing investigators with new information that could help them provide answers. 8-year-old Tanner Pomala remembers passing Kyron in the school hallway Friday morning as the two passed each other on the way to see different science experiments.
I went downstairs, and that was the last time I saw him. I never did see him after that.
45 minutes or so past 9 in the morning last Friday as the science fair ended. Tanner and Kyron's class was regrouping. Mrs. Porter, the regular teacher, accompanied by a substitute there to help with the science fair. It was the substitute, says Tanner, who noticed Kyron was missing.
And she's like, "Oh no, where's Kyron? There's only 5. And Mrs. Porter's like, it's all right, calm down. She's probably in the bathroom or getting a drink of water. She's like, all right, I'm gonna leave. And she left.
Tanner went about his day, realized that Kyron was not on the school bus going home. It was only when his dad was watching news of Kyron's disappearance that Tanner learned one of his best friends was missing.
It's hard because people are just writing notes and giving him candy and gummy bears and teddy bears and everything, trying to hope that he's coming back. And sometimes we always sit on the carpet and hold hands and pray that he will come back.
How he went unnoticed is absolutely just beyond me.
Wendy Führer is Tanner's grandmother, who says Kyron's disappearance is mind-boggling on many different levels because it happened at school and because she says it happened during such a busy day at school.
It would have to be somebody that I would think that Kyron knew or trusted. Kids just don't vanish.
Okay, so he sees him in the hallway. The FBI interviewed him. So why are we hitching our cart to that? He doesn't give a time.
Well, that isn't the whole interview. I've actually seen the interview when it was all like written down in the transcripts, and that video actually used to be a lot longer. I don't know why on the internet you can't see the longer version, but he does mention that he ran into Kyron. Kyron told him, you know, I'm going to go check out this cool electric project. And that was the last time he's seen him, you know.
That was in the clip about the electric project. So I'm just wondering, I mean,
I didn't just see that.
The FBI interviewed him, and they have, you know, they have their ways. And so if he saw Kyron and they have these receipts for Terry, again, why do they have all these questions for Terry, and why couldn't she be more forthcoming?
I don't know if they believe Tanner all of the way. You know, he says that there was a substitute teacher there, but there wasn't a substitute teacher there on the 4th. There was a substitute there like the whole rest of the week. And they had also asked Tanner's family not to come forward or talk on the media either. And then they ended up making the decision to go ahead and do that. And most people don't know it, but after the school was searched, one of the next places that they went to go search was Tanner's grandma's house and Tanner's dad's houseboat that is got an address for the Sauvie Island.
Oh, wow. Okay. Tim Blanche, welcome to the channel, said Tanner and his grandmother were told not to talk to anyone by law enforcement. The grandmother was friends with stepmom. I wonder why they ignored law enforcement and did this interview anyways. I think we can figure that out. And passing Kyron in the hallway, whatever he mentions isn't a time. That doesn't help anyone else.
Right. And I can't remember if it was Tanner or not that said they saw Terry leave without Kyron. I want to say it was Tanner. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that that's something he may have also said.
But, you know, the police have to follow evidence. And so if someone says, so if one child says, I passed Kyron in the hallway, and of course, children don't, I mean, was he wearing a wristwatch? Does he wear a digital watch? I don't think he had a cell phone or anything like that. We're talking years and years and years ago. Without a time, that doesn't help anything. And I think the problem for a lot of people, and I'm not law enforcement, I'm just talking my own vantage point. All of these people, and you've got 2 that can say they saw Kyron. And that in itself is disturbing.
Well, you have, you know, the other witnesses, adults. I guess the bus driver said that he saw Kyron leave with Terry. You have a couple of other adults that say they saw Kyron leave with Terry. I can't remember. I believe that those are House's witnesses, Terry Horman's attorney. But I can't ever find any information on those witnesses, ever, when I try looking into that information. So I'm kind of at a loss. You know, to me, though, for law enforcement to hear 2 kids that come forward, say what they have to say about Kyron, and then fully believe them when they're children, I just don't know about that. Me personally, I just, you know, maybe their times were incorrect. But I mean, if that 7th grader's parents had pictures on their phone and it did have some kind of timestamp on it, they may have other information that we just don't know about.
Oh yeah, and there's tons and tons and tons and tons of information, I promise you, I guarantee, but the police are never forthcoming with what they have. Never. And there's a good
Yeah,
reason
and I
that
mean,
they shouldn't be.
even if the timestamp on that is, what they're looking at, they still were looking at Terry Horman after they saw the timestamp information. So that's also pretty telling.
Exactly. All right, so this is the groundskeeper talking, and I know several people have said, and I mean, I don't have their names or anything like that. There's articles that can be accessed that are still available on the internet, and that said that people did see Terry with Kyron leaving the school, and maybe that you can't. I wouldn't want people going after those people, though. I wouldn't want someone who witnessed something to be bothered. Now, here's the groundskeeper.
Turning now to the search for Kyron and steps investigators are taking to evaluate the information a groundskeeper shared with K2 about the morning Kyron disappeared.
On your side, investigator Anna Canzano joins us live. And Anna, he met with investigators this morning.
Yes, Steve, with 2 detectives and a lead prosecutor in the case. They all went up to Skyline School early this morning to review the groundskeeper's timeline. Investigators in the Kyron Horman case wanted to know exactly what Dave Stenson saw and didn't see the morning of June 4th when he was mowing the soccer field at Skyline School. He's a Portland Parks and Rec employee who regularly cuts the grass at Skyline on Fridays and says he showed up that morning around 7:45 to begin his job there.
When I found out that Kyron was missing that day, I started to think, of course, like anybody would, well, gee, I was there that morning. What did I see, or was there anything that was out of the ordinary for me?
Stenson's information was potentially relevant because to get to the soccer field and mow the grass, he had to use the same gravel access road investigators are asking about in relation to the Horman truck and where it was between 8:15 and 8:45 that morning. Stenson has now clarified to investigators he believes he left Skyline around 8:45, perhaps as late as 9, and never saw the Horman's truck anywhere nearby. Investigators say that puts him on the gravel road outside of the critical half-hour window they want to know about, since they have witnesses who saw someone in or around the Horman's truck during that time. And investigators are still trying to figure out who was in that truck. They're hoping to hear from anyone who was there that morning, saw the Horman truck parked in front of the school, and could possibly identify who was in it. Investigators feel this could be key in figuring out just what happened to Kyron. Back to you.
Anna Canzano, thank you very much for that tonight. And here's that tip line. If you have information about Kyron's disappearance, 503-261-2847. And again, there is a reward of up to $50,000 to help find Kyron.
Okay, so there's the groundskeeper's timeline.
Yeah, and the thing about the groundskeeper, though, like when he first came forward, he said that he was there at 7:45 and he left at 8:30, and then he recanted that and then changed his timeline. I'm actually finished a case study on him. A lot of people talk about the groundskeeper and that maybe he could be a suspect in this case. Because not only did he change his timeline, he also changed his story. He told a news reporter that he saw children playing outside of the school, but then when the police asked him questions about what he saw that day, he just said, I didn't see anything. I was just paying attention to mowing the lawn. Now, if he got there at 7:45 in the morning, and Terry is saying that she got there at 8 a.m. in the morning, he has already pulled up access road, unlocked the gate, and drove his truck and his equipment onto the soccer field. So he's not going to see Terry pull up. And if he leaves there closer to 9 o'clock, like he has said, and she's saying that she left there at 8:45, he's not going to see her leave either. And he came forward 2 months later. He came forward in August. And a lot of people find that very suspicious, because everybody that was at the school on June 4th was asked to come forward, employees and everything. I mean, he had to have heard about Kyron coming up missing. And then he took off and he left and went to Mexico, according to a few people, after he talked to the news and law enforcement about what he knew that day. And he also said that he mowed the lawn on the soccer field after Oregon got like the second most recorded highest amount of rain in June. I mean, that place was soaking wet. Can that equipment even mow the lawn soaking wet? So when you bring up David Stinson, my mind goes, somewhere totally different. I don't think that he saw the truck, though. And with that being said, if you want to add the Terry aspect, Terry's parked over this grate in front of the school, and then law enforcement says that somewhere there's somebody in and around the truck, and the truck moves from in front of the school to up onto Access Road. Now, we talked about this earlier, about the west side of the school and the soccer field, and how you can't see anybody take a child from the west side of the school walking down that sidewalk there on that soccer field. Now, if somebody did pull up Terry Horman's truck and Kyron came down, I mean, they could have put Kyron into the truck right there and not been seen, because Access Road actually has a little curve in it too, and you can't see it going east or west on Skyline Boulevard if that truck's put in the right position. So when I heard just here recently, actually, that law enforcement said they knew that truck was moved forward, I about had a fit, because like I said, you know, some of the stuff that I think of has a lot to do with Terry, and Dede, but I also follow others' perspectives. So yeah, when you mention David Stinson, a lot goes through my mind.
Yeah, and for people to say that the FBI's never been involved, I mean, for those that were, and it's been a minute, because I mean, we're going on 13 years. So, you know, you go back to when you were first following the case, and I mean, I do remember, like I said, because I was watching it every night on Nancy Grace, Jane Velez Mitchell, I mean, all of them. And it was, the FBI was definitely involved. So I don't know where this new thing comes from now that the FBI was never involved. We just heard this clip where Tanner's talking, and I believe there's an extended clip. Jewel Weed is in here. She said there's actually 2, and I can only find 1. So we're going to have to do some hunting around, because we want to make sure we have it all. But 2 different clips is what she's saying. That would be helpful. And the FBI was definitely involved. So I don't know why anybody would say that they weren't.
Yeah, that is strange, because the FBI was involved immediately. Multnomah County Sheriff's Office got them involved the very first night.
Yeah, so I don't know why people would say that. All right, so where things go real sideways is this murder for hire thing. Now, before we get into it, I'm going to play a clip. Terry was never charged for this murder for hire. And it was also said that the guy that was interviewed, there's a language barrier. He barely speaks English. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I have heard it, and I just found it very strange. I mean, because Terry Horman hires him. Kane doesn't even know he's been hired, and they had to have been able to speak, you know, something in order for her to even hire him. And then you have them meeting up allegedly in a restaurant to talk about the murder for hire. So how would that conversation come about? You know, and just to point out, you know, she is married now to a Mexican. So could she speak a little bit of Spanish? Or could he speak a little bit of English? Or maybe they both spoke a little bit of whatever to be able to communicate. Who knows?
Somebody was able to communicate, because
I mean, he owns a landscaping business. I mean, he has to be able to work with his clients. How is he working with his clients if he can't speak any English to know what he's supposed to do?
Right. And this is not Laredo, Texas. This is Portland, Oregon. So you would have to be able to communicate with your landscaper to say where to mow, what to plant, what to dig up, what to trim down, you know, the whole 9 yards. So why she was never arrested for this murder for hire, I'll never understand. But you can just imagine how quickly Kane got the hell away from her. It happened real fast.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think
in an alleged murder for hire plot to kill her husband, Kane Horman. On Your Side investigator Anna Canzano shows us details of Terry Horman's apparent strategy that had never been revealed until now.
The context here is that Kyron Horman, of course, is still missing, gone from his school in northwest Multnomah County, his whereabouts unknown since June of 2010. Dramatic things have happened since his disappearance. His father, Kane Horman, obtained a restraining order against his wife, Terry, accusing her of plotting to kill him. Investigators focused heavily on Terry Horman in Kyron's disappearance, but never charged her as a suspect. In the meantime, Kane also filed for divorce from her, and for more than 3 years, Terry has gone without seeing their young daughter, Kiara. And now she's seeking parenting time with her daughter. Kane is resisting. Here is among the reasons why. Documents K2 News obtained reveal what was apparently Terry Horman's plan. A landscaper named Rudy Sanchez claims she hired him to perform landscaping work in 2008 at the home she shared with Kane. 5 months before Kyron disappeared, Sanchez says Terry invited him to a restaurant. Kiara, an infant at the time, was present. He says Terry asked him to help her find someone to get rid of Kane Horman. When asked why, Terry said Kane would take Kiara from her unless she got rid of him. Sanchez, under oath, says Terry told him Kane always carried cash of $10,000 for the taking and a computer, and that the murder could be made to look like a mugging. For Sanchez, it was an offer he could refuse. 5 months later, Kyron Horman disappeared. Anna Canzano, K2 News.
Kane Horman denies ever carrying $10,000 with them. This latest development proves news in the search for Kyron can break at any time, so make sure you stay with K2. Our investigators are on top of the case, and you can read updates on ka2.com.
That is freaking crazy. Why was she not charged? Hang on. Jewel Weed said the guy came out and said it wasn't true, so the case was dropped. Where is this reported at? That would be important.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Was he charged? He better have been charged. You can't go around making stuff like that up and you not have to go see the judge. Spend a little bit of time behind bars. So you have that going on. And Kane obviously was like, no thanks, I'm not dealing with this. So they start their divorce. He also gets a protective order against her. And I mean, obviously, he's got to protect their minor child because they have a daughter together. Carly said she should have been charged, in my opinion, for the murder for hire. A lot of immigrants work on Savi's Island as farmhands and landscapers. I know for a fact, and I believe him. Well,
yeah, but the thing about the Savi Island thing is that there's cameras on Savi Island, and Multnomah County Sheriff's Office was able to look at the footage, and the truck never goes over there and the Mustang never goes over there. So the whole entire time that they spent, which was months and months, searching on Savi Island, unless they have information they're not releasing, was a waste of time, in my opinion. And then they really blew it. They sent an undercover DEA agent and did a sting with the landscaper on June 26th. And they're sending them, to the door to go knock on the door and talk to Terry. And he's demanding the $10,000 that, allegedly he was promised. And, Terry opens the door. He's saying he wants the $10,000. Now, Terry, I'm going to say from my own perspective, if I was Terry, first of all, I'm damn sure not going to talk to this landscaper with somebody that I don't know standing behind him, this DEA agent.
Yeah.
You know, you're not, you got a missing child and they're sending out a stranger. I mean, the landscaper's wired up and everything. Why didn't they just send him out to go do that? Sending the DEA was like the worst thing they could have done. And I think that's where they blew it. And that's where they didn't have their proof that she had anything to do with this murder for hire thing. And I think that still to this day, that's why she has never been arrested for it.
Well, I mean, she was on high alert as it is. We haven't even gotten to the burglary yet, and I'm not skipping ahead to that part yet. She was already paranoid, with good reason, that she was being followed, listened in on, etc. So he comes to the door, where's my $10,000? Of course she's going to say, I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she ends up making a 911 phone call and has them come out to get him to leave. And of course, the DEA has to say, you know, no worries, don't come out here. This is a sting, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It all comes out. She realizes that that's what it is. And they just screwed up the case, just like they've done. And like I just said, other things, just like the Sauvie Island thing and the camera on the bridge. You know, they spent so much time searching Sauvie Island. What are these investigators doing?
That's why I wish the Cold Case Foundation would get involved, so that way people that possibly, I don't know, I mean, I don't work for them. I wasn't on the task force, that made mistakes that can't admit to them now. You have a different set of eyes and they can go through it. So a lot is still said to this day about, not that long after Kyron's disappearance, the sexting that was going on between Terry and another guy who happens to be friends with Kane, even though they had lost contact with each other. But this guy pops back up with the disappearance of Kyron because he was going to help search and everything. So how this came about between Terry and him, don't know, don't want to know. But she explains it on Dr. Phil, and, you know, it seemed to me that Dr. Phil just wasn't putting a lot of salt into anything she had to say. And another thing, so many people will say she wasn't the last person to see Kyron. Well, you're sitting there on one of the world's biggest stages, and that is the Dr. Phil show. What is it, 80 million people a day see that show? And as before the theme music even plays, it says, last person to see Kyron, last person to see Kyron. Why did she not correct him at any time during that show and say, hang on, I wasn't the last person to see him? She was right there. Why did she not say at some time in that show, I wasn't the last person to see him? Make that a stern correction. But this is what she says, just her words, not mine. That way we can't say it's a, you know, a mainstream media narrative. This is what she says.
On Facebook a few days afterwards with things that some people were critical of. For example, saying, hitting the gym tomorrow. I didn't get home until 8 p.m. tonight. This is 4 days after Kyron has gone missing.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, you don't know if he is been kidnapped and is being raped and tortured, is lying dead and cold in a ditch. You don't know what is going on. And you say, hitting the gym tomorrow, I didn't get home until 8 p.m. tonight. That, I think, would be viewed as a lot of people as atypical behavior for a distraught mother of a missing child.
Well, that would be because the law enforcement told us to do things that we normally do. So they want you to go grocery shopping. They want you to go to the gym. They actually specifically told both Kane and I, and he was with me that day when we went.
Did they tell you to sext with someone 26 days afterwards?
No.
Because I found this.
I have a very hard time believing, just because we've done many, many shows and we've had several people involved in our community who have had missing children. One right now, it's a very, very high profile case out of Idaho, Michael Vaughn. Law enforcement has never told any of these other parents that we have had on the show, talked with, whether they came on the show or not. No one has ever said to us, to me personally, law enforcement told me to go to the grocery store, keep your Facebook updated, do all the normal things you always do. They're in too much of a panic trying to find their child. They're out hanging flyers, knocking on doors. Have you seen my child? I've never heard this before. Never.
Yeah, don't insult me and ask me to go on with my everyday life while my child is missing. I am sorry. I'm not going to the gym. I'm not going grocery shopping because I'm probably not even eating. I would just, I would be so devastated. I mean, you wouldn't even be able to keep me from being out on the street, searching, doing everything I possibly could to find my son.
No.
I found this really strange behavior, and I have to tell you, I have a hard time squaring this up, and I have to say, I took out. There were many of these that I just simply FCC can't put up, and I'm only putting your side up here. But you're texting with a man, and you say whatever, like I'm going to get any ever again. Tell Jason Statham I'm available for whatever. I can bench. You're talking about bench pressing. I can do 195. That's how I roll. Then you say, you're flirting around. I'm stronger than you. He responds. You say, we need to arm wrestle. Meanwhile, just know I can take you down. I won't hurt you though. I'll pin you down and sit on you. I take it you're attracted to me. Okay, I didn't want to ravish you or anything. Insert evil grin with latex. Whoops, did I say that out loud? If you didn't have your son tonight, I would show you what I think of you. I may have to clear it with the boss. You talk about hiring this defense lawyer extraordinaire. You're toast, beware. Grin, going to bed, underwear and tank top. Think about that. Do you want to pick? Then you send a photo and say, that's only the left one. I quote unquote aim to please.
Who sends a picture of just one boob? That's only the left foot. Who sends a picture of just one titty? Who would do that? What kind of teaser is that? We know we're not talking about cheeks. That's just my left cheek. Who sends a picture of just one boob?
Oh, good Lord.
Oh my God. One boob, Terry.
Did you want something bigger? Another photo. I mean, it gets much more graphic. So we're talking not 3 weeks that your son has been missing.
And not 2 weeks into it, this is what Kane's doing with somebody else.
Well, I'm talking about you
I
as a
know,
mother.
exactly.
Kane's not here. He's
No.
been here. You're here. I'm
Well,
asking you, you're a mother with a missing child.
This was in retaliation for something that he was doing that I found out about while this is happening. And this particular person was actually his friend and sent to the house. So this was a setup. I'm saying this person came to the house. He was Kane's friend.
Okay, so she's saying that this was Kane's friend that was sent as a setup. Now, if one of my husband's friends comes over, it'd be like, well, he'll be here in a little bit, grab yourself something to drink or, or whatever. There wouldn't be any information exchanged, a picture, especially my bigger titty. Who would take a picture of just one?
Yeah, who initiated all of it? I mean, did he come over and start initiating it? Is that how the sexting started? Did she initiate it? I mean, she's saying that she's doing it because she's trying to piss off Kane because, she found out that he was sexting, but we don't hear any other place that Kane did that. But I will point out, you don't hear anything about Kane or his life or anything. It's like he's either covering it up and not letting law enforcement talk about it, or he's just so hush hush about everything that nobody can never get anything on him, because I mean, he's not even really on social media. So it's just, was he actually sexting another woman during this time too? I mean, how could either of them, if they were both doing it, how could either of them be doing that when Kyron's missing?
And
I mean, the sexting thing embarrasses me because I'm not one of those people that are going to do that anyway, but who would be doing that?
Her, because we don't have any proof that Kane did. We have a lot of he said, she said. And I do know that I will say this for Kane. He's doing amazing things with the Kyron Horman Foundation that is helping families with missing children. And that cannot be taken away from Kane, because I know he's done amazing things for the family of Michael Vaughn. And
yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm not smashing Kane. I never do that. I don't smash Kane. I don't smash on Desiree. These parents are heartbroken. Their child is missing. I mean, I can't even start to begin to imagine what they're going through. My heart goes out to both of them. One of the reasons why I work on this case is because it was right here. It hit home. I am a hop, skip, and a jump away from where he came up missing. The whole story really intrigued me from the very beginning, and watching Desiree and Kane on the news right after he came up missing broke my heart. So I'm not smashing on him. I just want to.
Oh, no. Nobody thinks that. No, I'm sorry. No, nobody thinks that. What I was saying is, I do know that one thing he is doing is he's doing great things with the Kyron Horman Foundation. Whatever else he's doing, I couldn't tell you. Good for him for keeping it quiet, though, because for some reason, her shit's always been out there. Her left boob and everything.
I did this deliberately because I was angry and getting back at him.
So you text and say,
She just said it was a setup. Now she says it's deliberate. I did this deliberately to get back at him, because we don't have more pressing matters like where is Kyron? And she already knows that the police are honing in on her. So why are you doing that? Why? She knows. She already knows that people are treating her differently than they are other people. She knows that. So why? She goes, I did it deliberately. But she just said he sent him over there as a setup.
I'll show you what pleasure
I had
is.
no interest in having this person in my life. This was something to screw with Kane because I was angry with him because he was doing the exact same thing with somebody else.
But you apparently are trying to hide it, because at one point you say, I can't talk, bugs in the house, in danger if I go outside. I want you so bad. I don't know what it is about you, but I'm very attracted to you. Give me 15 minutes and I will make you moan. I mean, and you're saying I can't do this where anybody can hear me, and you're sending very graphic photos. I mean, we're clinically graphic photos here, right? And you're saying this is for revenge?
Yeah, but also by this time, we're not even together anymore.
Okay, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there's really nothing you can do with that. There's no way of dancing around that one. The murder for hire, if the guy said that he made the whole thing up, then his ass should have been in jail. I think that the police and I back the blue, but it doesn't make them superheroes. It doesn't. They make mistakes, and sometimes their mistakes can be huge. Huge. All right. So as I was saying, she knew that people were looking at her. So you think that you would watch for any misstep. Left boob, right boob. You would keep every boob in the same lane. You wouldn't get out of your lane. You would be so careful as to make sure you don't make any missteps. She did share an email though. And I mean, and with all of this, not that anyone's going to do anything about her damn sexting or anything, there's been no charges. There's been no charges. She's never been formally named a suspect. Now, you know, behind closed doors, they're saying she's a suspect. She is our person of interest. We can't sew up her day. But they can't, you got to be able to prove it. You got to be able to prove it.
Live in HD, this is K2 News at 11 on your side.
Dede, thanks a lot for being with us, and only on K2 for the very first time. In her own words now, we hear from the one person who's been silent during the 2-month search for Kyron Horman, his stepmother.
K2's Anita Cassay obtained emails she sent the day after Kyron vanished.
Well, reading through these from the very start, long before the alleged murder for murder for hire plot, I should say, and those alleged sexting affairs, it seems that Terry knew suspicions settled on her, even writing, quote, "They are blaming me in the blogs. I just want to scream."
Terry, do you have anything to say? Do you have anything to say? You know where Kyron is. Yes or no?
She is the person everyone wants to talk. Kyron Horman's stepmother.
You tell the world something.
But while Terry Horman has remained silent in front of cameras, her fingers have not.
These are excerpts from 2 emails that K2 News obtained, written by Terry to a source we will not reveal, sent on the day after Kyron vanished from Skyline School during that science fair. Now, investigators have said Terry is the last person to see Kyron, but this is what Terry wrote.
The teacher thought I said I was going to take Kyron with Kitty for a doctor's appointment.
Okay, this is important. This is what she emailed the day after. The day after. The teacher thought I said I was going to take Kyron with Kitty for a doctor's appointment. I said I was going to look at other exhibits. How do you mess that up? His coat and backpack were still at school. I left the school at 9 o'clock and he was seen with a man, in quotes, chaperone, and 2 girls after I left. There were no men on the chaperone list. That, and it was highly chaotic, had to be 300 people running around. No coordination. Who are the 2 girls? Who is the chaperone? If she left at 9, then why did she ever say, which could have just been a miscommunication, that she was at Fred Meyer's at 9? I don't know.
I said I was going to look at other exhibits. How do you mess that up? His coat and backpack were still at school. I left the school at 9, and he was seen with a man, chaperone, and 2 girls after I left. There were no men on the chaperone list. That, and it was highly chaotic. Had to been 300 people running around, no coordination. The reference to her daughter's doctor visit, not mentioned again in a follow-up email sent later that day. I didn't just drop him off. I spent time with him, took pictures, and he was in safe hands, I thought, as I watched him walk down the hall. Kids saw him after I left. Teacher put him as absent at 10 a.m. Someplace between 9 and 10 is when we think it happened. I have a receipt showing I was checking out at Fred Meyer 7 miles away at 9:12 a.m. I went to another Fred Meyer looking for meds for Kitty they didn't have at the first Fred Meyer. Then I was trying to get Kitty to sleep in the truck for a few minutes, but no go, so off to the gym at 11:20, out at 12:20, home at 12:45, came home at 2, bus at 3:30. That was my day. They keep asking me, now on my 5th interview with them. Terry went on to talk about Kyron's recent behavior. The past 2 weeks, he's been acting really weird, staring off into space. Can't remember anything. Walks into the room and then back out. Stopping to stare and then move on. The doc thinks that he is having many seizures, and I made an appointment on Thursday for next Friday to have him checked out.
That contradicts what multiple sources have told K2, that in the days before the science fair, Terry informed Kyron's teacher he had an appointment that day, June 4th. That is why no one expected that he would be in class and why he was marked absent.
Very detailed account by her
where she was that day?
Again, those were sent on June 5th.
Anita, thank you.
Anita, thank you very much. The grand jury in the Kyron Horman case is focusing on Terry Horman's workout friends now. One source tells K2 Terry told them she was angry because Kane was making her teenage son move out of their home. The person who wants to remain anonymous says Terry made the comments in the 24-hour fitness 1 or 2 months before Kyron vanished. It's the gym where we tried to talk to the Hormans days after Kyron vanished. K2 has learned searches directly linked to Terry's friend Dede Spicer were conducted over the weekend. Spicer and at least one other friend bought disposable cell phones for Terry after Kyron disappeared.
A cell phone in the woods is the needle in the haystack. But again, if these are untraceable disposable cell phones, the forensics are so good that they can retrieve a lot of information from those devices.
Now, sources at the courthouse will not confirm whether they're looking at the alleged rift between Terry and Kane as a motive for Kyron's disappearance.
The Oregonian reports tonight investigators are trying to learn if another adult was sitting in the white pickup truck that Terry Horman drove to Skyline School the day Kyron disappeared. It reports the person may have been in the truck while Terry was with Kyron at the science fair. We called the sheriff's office tonight. They won't comment on details of an open investigation. Sheriff's office will hold a news conference Wednesday morning at 11. It says it will release certain details. You can watch the news conference live on KATU or online at KATU.com.
Okay, that clip is a lot of information, and you can't ignore the red flags. I'm just speaking figuratively out into the air. And this is like such a time capsule. Those Go phones from AT&T, I laughed my ass off when I saw that. Terry saying they're accusing me in the blogs. Boy, that's a blast from the past. Reminds me so much of Letitia, though. Within a day of Gannon's disappearance, she was already mad about people on social media blaming her.
Yeah, I mean, that email, she knows her timeline, that's for sure. She knows exactly what she was doing. And I was at Fred Meyer's at 9:12 and I did this and I did that. Even though when they asked her where she was that day, all of a sudden she drew a blank and she couldn't really tell them where she went that day. But in that email, she sure can come up with exactly where she was and what she was doing. And they're coming after me. I always thought that really strange about that email.
Jewel Weed said, I don't think Terry took Kyron from the school. Could she be involved with the person who did? Strongly possible. And I agree with that. For some reason, I've always thought it would be odd that Terry would do any of the, this is probably wrong way of phrasing something, but do any of the dirty work herself. Now let's talk about the burner phones. The burner phones, even back in 2010, when a lot of people still didn't carry cell phones, thought that to be really odd. Then there's a pissing match about who bought the burner phones. I've always said, who cares who bought the burner phones? You felt the need to communicate, pay in cash, and use fake names for burner phones. Why? What could you have said that would have gotten you in trouble? Or God forbid, you might have said something that you didn't remember and they could have used it to help Kyron.
Yeah, Dede comes forward on her BOC interview and says that she was advised through a meeting that Terry had with family and attorney that she should assume that all of the communication was being monitored by law enforcement and anyone she had contact with. Assume the house is bugged, the cars, etc. My thing on that has always been like, I've got a kid missing. I'm not going to go out and buy burner phones because I'm not going to give a shit if they're listening to me. And then you have other people out there like you and I have talked before that, you know, think maybe law enforcement's crooked. They're going to twist your words. They're going to do something like that. So you're going to get burner phones. But I never understood the burner phone situation because I'm not going to go do that. I mean, the first day, one burner phone is bought, paid for in cash, And that was at the Lloyd Center by one of the ladies. And she said that that burner phone was for herself. Then the next day in Portland, 2 more burner phones were purchased. All 3, though, were under a fake name and paid for in cash. Dede admits in her BOC interview that she purchased one of those phones either on the 29th or the 30th.
And just saying, your child is abducted and your child is trying to get a hold of you. We're talking about small children that may not put together. They don't have it in their head to dial 911 because they're small children, but they know your phone number. You can't get a hold of the new burner phone, right?
Right. That's actually a very good point. That's a very good point. My thing is with the 2 burner phones that were bought the second day, supposedly they went and bought these 2 burner phones. They were AT&T phones. And those were purchased because the 2 Verizon phones that Dede and Terry owned weren't working in the house where Terry lived with Kane. That does not make sense to me. Terry had been living there with Kane for a while. Did she live in a house where her cell phone didn't work? That whole thing with the whole AT&T phones needing to be purchased because the Verizon phones weren't working, I just have to call a little bit BS on that one. And I mean, not just the burner phones, they're going out back in the backyard to have conversations and stuff too, because they're worried they're going to be listening. And that still, again, blows my mind. Why are you worried about anybody listening? And people say law enforcement can turn your words around and use it against you later on and misconstrued everything you're saying. And it only takes that little bit of something. And that's what they could do. And, law enforcement went hard on Dede and Terry. So they may have been scared to death that that's exactly what they were going to do. And that's why they ended up buying the burner phones. And, you have an attorney saying, hey, they could be listening to everything that you say. They could be bugging your house and your cars. So be careful. So the lawyer even just saying that to Terry and then her relaying that to Dede caused a lot of paranoia.
Reminds me of Billy Joe and her daughter Lilazy. They were always outside. They're like, we can't bear to go inside because it's just so many memories of Quentin. So they were outside like Tom Cruise in that movie, The Firm, outside talking to each other. Leilani's in jail now for beating Quentin to death, though. So I guess that can't be compared now, can it? All right, so let's look at this. This is about the burner phones.
Thanks for being with us. I'm Steve Dunn.
And I'm Angelica Thornton in for Deb Knapp tonight. K2 uncovers new details about cell phones purchased to help Terry Horman communicate with 2 of her closest friends after Kyron Horman disappeared.
On your side, investigator Anna Song is live at the Multnomah County Courthouse now with this new information. Anna, you've also been monitoring grand jury activity again today.
I have, Steve. At least 2 more witnesses showed up today, but we also learned today how Terry Horman and 2 of her friends tried to have private conversations because they felt at least one of their phone lines had someone else listening in. Rounding out day 5 of grand jury testimony in the Kyron Horman case, a close friend of Terry Horman answered her subpoena, one of several friends who had her home searched and who underwent polygraph testing. Also appearing before the grand jury, Ben Kiefer, the principal of Skyline School, where Kyron was last seen touring classrooms with his stepmother on June 4th during the science fair. Both spent roughly 2 to 2.5 hours with jurors before slipping out the back door of the courthouse late Friday afternoon. K2 News has learned the role prepaid cell phones are playing in the case. Multiple sources tell K2 News in the days after Kane Horman moved out, Terry and 2 friends stayed in communication using such phones. At least one of them was purchased by Dede Spicer, another by a second friend from an electronics store inside the Lloyd Center Mall. The friend admits to me she used a fake name to buy the phone. She says they were simply trying to have some privacy as they tried to help Terry find an attorney attorney and felt their conversations were being monitored. As a practical matter, she says they also needed phones with AT&T coverage since their Verizon phones didn't have service at the Horman home, where they were all spending considerable amounts of time. What remains unclear is why 2 additional prepaid phones were purchased at another store in downtown Portland the next day, under the same fake name the friend used to buy hers at Lloyd Center. She tells me she knows those phones were paid for in cash, but she did not purchase them. And just to be clear, that friend did tell me that the phone she bought from Lloyd Center was for herself to use, not Terry Horman. And something to keep in mind, wiretapping is a tool available to investigators so long as they get a judge to sign off on it, as long as they have exhausted other investigative means in the case. Simply having a prepaid cell phone does not avoid a wiretap. Investigators can tap any phone line, a cell phone line, a landline, or otherwise. Reporting live at the Multnomah County Courthouse, Anna Song, K2 News.
Anna, thank you. A reminder for you, the tip line is still open. If you have any information about Kyron's disappearance, here's that number again, 503-261-2847. There is a reward now of $50,000 to help find Kyron.
Woo! Of course, that's going to raise a lot of eyebrows, and some people are going to say, no, you don't talk to the cops. It's their job to find your child. It's their job to build a case. You should be careful at all costs. I am of the mindset that if you love that child and you want that child home, you're going to give them every information that you can possibly think of from your day and not change your phone number and other things and talk outside so they don't hear you say anything. I can't think of anybody on this planet that I would ever feel the need to go outside and talk to.
Yeah, they were really, really paranoid. I mean, just everything they did just screams paranoia. And that all brings, like, Kane has left with the baby. He has already filed for divorce, and Dede Spencer comes. She stays with her for 11 days. And I've said it many times before. I don't care if it's my best friend. I don't care if it's an acquaintance. If somebody I know is being looked into for possibly taking, kidnapping, murdering, whatever, a child, I'm not going to insert myself in a case. I'm not going to go to that person's house and go stay with her. I mean, Dede inserts herself in this case. And, maybe she regrets it. Maybe she's thinking now, oh my God, I wish I would have never did that. And according to her, she says that she did it because Terry's parents were there at the house. They were visiting from Roseburg. They had to leave and go home. And they asked Dede if she would come and stay. And then you have the text messages. So she's there. She's trying to be a friend. There's been burner phones. This kind of suspicious activity. I have to say, it is suspicious activity going on. A lot of paranoia going on. And they're both sitting in their underwear because in some of those text messages back and forth to Michael, Dede and her are both in their underwear, according to Terry, sexting Michael Cook. So, I mean, you're doing all of the suspicious stuff. You're using burner phones and you're both sitting in your underwear. Now, whether or not they were actually really sitting in their underwear, we don't know that. That's what she was sexting to Michael Cook. But they're sitting there acting like 2 teenage girls and there is a child missing.
Yeah, and you're not coming back from that. You're not coming back from that. And I'm skipping ahead because, of course, Dede comes up a lot in this case, a lot. And it's something that she's never going to shake off, ever. She's never going to shake off. It upsets a lot of people, not just the family, but just when it's brought up, that when she was questioned on the stand, she refused to answer. I want to say it was like 146 questions. One of the questions was, do do you recognize this child? And that child is Kyron. She wouldn't even say that's Kyron. She would not answer anything. Now, it's telling that they had that many questions to ask her about Kyron. I mean, really, they had that many questions for her, and she wouldn't answer any of them. That's Dede on the screen. I mean, most people, you wouldn't even have had 5 questions for them. Okay, they answered their questions, they get out of here. They had that much information they needed out of her.
Yeah, and how, you know, her attorney tells her plead the fifth on all these questions.
Because he's a good
I
attorney.
don't
That's
know.
what attorneys do. Attorneys know their shit, and they say, don't speak. You plead the fifth and get the hell out of there.
See, and if it was me and I didn't know anything, I would just want to answer questions. I would probably even end up arguing with the attorney. But then again, the way that Dede was attacked by law enforcement, the way that Terry was attacked by law enforcement, again, you got them being paranoid and very scared about what's going to happen, whether they were involved or not. So yeah, you might want to plead the fifth on 146, questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're certainly not going to answer their questions and help them find Kyron, because odds are you can't. Because it's going to get
Yeah, and it all
a bunch of trouble.
Right. I mean, that again goes right back to how many people have spoken about, LE misconstruing words, twisting things around to make it fit their agenda. They had already been doing it according to Dede and Terry, and so they were terrified. They answered any question wrong. Yeah, they might be in prison right now.
Yep. All right. So here's a little bit more on Dede.
Brenda, we can tell you we have just received this flyer that investigators handed out over the weekend. In that flyer, they gave it to neighbors of a property searched by investigators on Sunday. That property is where Terry Horman's friend Dede was gardening the day Kyron disappeared. In that flyer, investigators want to know who saw the Horman pickup truck between 9:45 a.m. and 1 p.m. Investigators also want to know if anyone saw stepmom Terry Horman or her friend Dede Spicer around that same time. We first told you yesterday that investigators want more information about a person reported to have been in the white truck Terry was last seen driving the day Kyron disappeared. At least 2 people saw another person in that pickup truck, and investigators say those witnesses are credible.
They have witnesses seeing Terry and somebody else in the truck. These are elementary questions. These are questions that should be very simple to answer. They said these are credible witnesses. So we want to know who this is. They put out this flyer. Here it is. If anybody saw these 2 women in this truck the day that Kyron went missing, let us know. We don't know if anybody did because they don't open up the case file for us. But these are very simple, elementary questions, but they can't be answered. Why can they not be answered? Why can these simple questions not be answered?
Yeah, I'd like to know what the witnesses actually said about, if they're wanting to know if they saw either of those women. Did the witnesses come forward and say they saw somebody with red hair? Did they say they saw a woman? Because, wouldn't they have to say something like, I saw a woman, if 2 women are the 2 women that are on these flyers?
Their words, they said they're credible. This is what they want to know.
Yep.
2 people saw another person in that pickup truck, and investigators say those witnesses are credible. We also know that investigators now say that Terry Horman's friend Dede Spicer disappeared at 10 a.m. that day from a property 10 minutes away from Skyline Elementary. Originally, we were told she disappeared way later than that. Again, investigators will hold a news conference. It's scheduled for 11 o'clock tomorrow. We're going to carry that news conference live on News Channel 8 and online at KG.
Okay, I probably have to rewind that. So at this news clip, at this time, they say they know that Dede left her place of employment, which is near the school. Let's listen to it again. I don't want to misspeak. Because this is
10 a.m. that day from a property 10 minutes away. We also know that investigators now say that Terry Horman's friend Dede Spicer disappeared at 10 a.m. that day from a property 10 minutes away from Skyline Elementary. Originally, we were told she disappeared way later than that. Again, investigators were holding.
Time is a big deal. Time is a big deal, but especially in these cases. So they were first told that she left work much later than that. Investigators found out, no, she left at 10 a.m.
It's kind of the opposite. Bruce McCain, in the very beginning, and at one point, said that West Wind Farms, Miss Hawkinsmith, which was Dede's boss, had reported that Dede was missing an hour and a half to 3 hours from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. But then there was a time change because Dede comes forward and says that she saw this vendor there, and she never left West Wind Farms. And law enforcement gets a hold of this vendor, and I think, I have not been able to confirm this, but I think when law enforcement talks to this vendor, he is able, or this person is able to say, well, I was there during this time. And that's how the time frame ends up switching from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. to 11:30 to 1 o'clock.
How is there a time change? Isn't there only one time zone in Portland? What do you mean a time change?
Well, the story, the timeline of events, because Bruce McCain had talked to West Wind Farms, and she had originally said Dede was missing for about an hour and a half to 3 hours. So law enforcement thought Dede was missing from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. But after law enforcement talked to this vendor, that Dede had came forward and said, no, I saw this vendor. I think they were able to confirm at that time that she was there after 10 a.m. And that's when law enforcement changed that timeline from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Because that is the most recent timeline that they have right now, where they're saying that Dede was missing from West Wind Farms.
Okay. I got it now. I messed that whole thing up, guys.
News conference. It's scheduled for 11 o'clock tomorrow. We're going to carry that news conference live on News Channel 8 and online at kgw.com. In that news conference, they will talk about that mystery person that we've been talking about and ask for more help in finding out where that truck was the day Kyron Horman disappeared. In the meantime, the grand jury continues to meet in this case in the courthouse here behind me. One last note is that KGW has learned from sources within the Skyline community, including those who have spoken with investigators, that investigators say their job has been made harder by the fact that Terry Horman told different people different things, which adds more and creates a lot of confusion in this case. We're going to have more on this developing story coming up on KGW tonight at 5 and 6.
It speaks for itself. When time is of the essence, time is important, and you're trying to find a child. In the middle of all of this, there is a little boy missing who's a grown man now. Given he's alive, he's grown now. So, as they said, it makes their job more difficult when Terry is telling different things to different people. There is only one story, and that is the truth. It can't change. It can't change. It can't be exaggerated. It can't be bent. There's one version. If you mess up something like, the teacher told me to have a good day, and then you're like, no, I told her to have a good day. Okay, that's one thing. They're still going to side-eye that. But you have different people being told different things. You have time discrepancies. The detective that you had mentioned said that Terry's cell phone pinged in areas that she never claimed to be in. I have to find that clip.
Yeah. They ended up confronting her on that, and I believe they put her in the car and made her drive around and show them where she had went. I personally would know exactly where I went that day. I would be able to tell you the roads and stuff, but I'm just one of those people that know my location. I know roads names and stuff, but it sounds like she kind of had an issue with being able to tell them everywhere that she went that day.
And she does say it has to do with a hearing loss that she has. And that, of course, was pretty much proven on the Dr. Phil show that she hears just fine. So now we're going to make it all about you. You live in that area. You were talking about a certain area where she would have been with a baby with an ear infection. And you said, my ears pop in that area. Go ahead.
So when you're traveling west down Highway 30, if you take a left up Logie Road, it goes up very high in elevation. You also have Rocky Point up there, and that's like way west of Skyline Boulevard. You have Moreland Road. Now, all of these roads that I am naming are all places where they have searched for Kyron. I have done videos in all of this area, and as I'm traveling up to Moreland Road, my ears were popping, and they were popping really bad. Even my husband's ears were popping. And I mentioned something about it on Kyron Horman's Case Revisited in my Facebook, and was telling everybody, like while I was doing this video, my ears were popping and stuff. And it just made me think, here you got this 8-month-old baby in a car, you're traveling around, and she's got an earache. I mean, were her ears popping? Mine sure were. And I had so many people come back at me, they live in that area. The baby was probably used to it. So you're just trying to look into things too deep. Well, I travel all over the Pacific Northwest. I go fishing, I go hiking, we go to the beach. I mean, I go up mountainsides all the time. You have to even travel to the beach, and my ears rarely pop. But that day going up to Moreland Road, traveling West Skyline, or even going up Logie Road, my ears were popping. And it was uncomfortable. And when I mentioned it to my husband, he was like, you know what? My ears were actually popping today. I mean, I have a video, and that's like so empty up there. There is nothing but a bunch of logging roads up there. We're talking 12 years later. This is 12 years later that I start taking these videos, okay? So 12 years later, there's hardly any houses up there. There's a bunch of logging roads. I can't even imagine what it looked like 12 years ago when it's 2010. There couldn't have been any houses possibly even up there. And it was just, as I travel around all of these places where they have searched for Kyron, I think to myself, what the hell was she doing driving these roads? And it's not just the baby's earache or the fact that her ears could have been popping. You're literally thinking, why was she traveling all of these roads? She ends up at the gym. She starts out at Fred Meyer's on Walker Road. The gym where she ends up at later that day is not even a mile away. So she ends up right back where she starts off. That actually made me wonder whether she was picking up or dropping off somebody that day. But that's my own, idea.
No,
And
altitude is altitude. You're not just going to get used to altitude just because you live in that area. I mean, your ears pop because of altitude. It affects everybody. And you're talking about a baby that would have hurt like hell. Carly says your ears do pop going up those. I know for a fact.
yeah, and if that person lives in the area, then she knows like I do, like it's not normal to pop as hard as mine were popping like it was when I went up Moreland Road. It goes up in elevation quite a bit. I even did an elevation chart and everything to prove just how high up it went. And it was pretty high. And like I'm saying, like if you end up and start off in this one area off of Highway 26 and Walker Road, you leave there, and to get to this entire area that was searched where possibly her phone was pinging or whatnot. I don't know exactly why they say that they're searching all of these areas, but I'm having a brain fart. You get up there and it's a long ways away from Walker Road in the gym, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And she's trying to get the baby to sleep.
By the way, I got to
She gets the baby. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, no, you're fine. It is a gorgeous area. I was there for a couple of weeks, May of 2021. And now that it's very mountainous, very vast. There's some roads that you think you're going to die on when you're driving them.
Oh, they're windy. They are so windy and they go straight up, a lot of them. And I'll point out something else that a lot of people don't know. There is a rainforest behind Skyline Elementary School. Like, that is how crazy this area is. There are mountains, there are trees, there are blackberry bushes. You have the huge park that's there, that's talked about all the time, where everybody goes hiking and everything else. I mean, people love to go there. Matter of fact, when me and my husband get together to go do videos, we pack a lunch or we go eat lunch because it is so beautiful. And every time I'm out there, I see a rainbow. And I don't know if that's Kyron saying hi to me or whatnot, but I'm always laughing about it because I see a rainbow just about every time we go out. And we just try to really enjoy the area because it's so beautiful there.
Dang it, I had myself muted. I don't know how I did that. And the name of your channel, tell everyone the name of your channel, because the work that you do there, it puts you right there. And you guys know that when we do different cases, unless they're from Oklahoma, because I don't need them, I love to have the locals up, and we want to know what goes on there, not what we see on our TV, not what we see on the computer screen. We want to know what goes on there. What is the name of your channel again?
My channel is Kyron Horman Case Revisited. And it's pretty much exactly what it says. I revisit everywhere. I've revisited the school. I have revisited the search areas. I recently talked to my admin on Facebook and told her I want to start revisiting the places and sightings where people and witnesses have came forward and said that they might have or did see Kyron, because I think it's really important. People from all over the world. I mean, my admin, she's from the UK. And we met each other in a discussion group. People from all over the world are interested in this case. And for so long, I've had so much passion, and I have just looked into it on my own before discussion groups and everything. I used to drive around Sauvie Island all the time and in the area. I've always wanted to do something, and I got called forward to do a case studies on a bunch of different people with a bunch of women. I ended up going out on my own and started doing my videos. And I have had so many people go, oh my God, I had no clue that's what that area looked like. I mean, Kyron lived in a house with his dad, Kane, off of Cornelius Pass Road, which is a very windy road off of Highway 30. And just one of the videos that I did where I show the driveway where Kyron came from, and this really super deep ravine and the wooded area. I mean, he lived in a home on 5 acres. The school that he attended to had a rainforest in the backyard of it. I mean, and this is where they're searching. 2 miles radius around this school, you have searchers on horseback. You've got dogs. You've got people, you know, on ATVs, and they're all looking for him, and they're having to search thick wooded areas. And it's the largest search for any missing person in the state of Oregon.
Oh, crazy.
And I wanted to bring perspective.
Well, I think you did an amazing job. And I was watching your channel before I met you. And then I was like,
oh, really?
I was like, you're behind that? Great job. Great job. So I put the link in
well,
here.
Thank you so much.
You guys check it out. And as for today, that's all I got for you guys. But Samantha, will you come back on with us?
I sure will, anytime.
Okay, because this has been a great to go through all this. And there's a ton of stuff to discuss in this case. A ton. You can't do it all in one day. Like I said on the last show, you'd have to pack a lunch, take a nap, wake up, and get back to it again because it would take forever. And there's no way you're not going to remember something or you're going to miss something. Jewel, we did say that the clip we had of Tanner, it's not the complete clip. I have to find that because we want all the info, all the facts, and we want to get it from the news. We don't, all the he said, she said isn't going to really help us too much. But we do know that somebody's got one boob bigger than the other. So we learned that at least today. All right, you guys are the best. I am done for today. And I will see
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you reaching out and stuff. You know, I was so nervous to do this because I'm going to start doing my own live shows. And all of this is just kind of like practice to, you know, be able to start doing that for myself. And I just really appreciate you reaching out and asking, you know, for me to come forward because, you know, it's about Kyron. It's about finding Kyron. And I just hope that maybe one of the videos that I do, somebody sees something, a light bulb goes off and they say, oh my God, I remember that day. I remember being there. And that's the reason for revisiting all of these places.
Well, you're doing an amazing job. You have a great channel. And when you go live, we'll be there to cheer you on.
Thank you so much.
Big round of applause for Samantha. She brought a lot of a different perspective. And I just really enjoyed talking to her. It's all about Kyron. Even though I'm up here, it sounds like I'm hating on Terry. I don't know Terry. I don't know Desiree. I don't know Kane. You know, I don't have a bet in Vegas over who's the suspect's going to be. But we just want somebody held accountable and the right person. I'm going to steal a phrase from the Idaho case. We don't want an arrest. We want a conviction. And obviously, to find Kyron Horman. Going on 13 years, way too long. But I will see you guys back here at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. You're not going to find a better chat anywhere on YouTube. I'm telling you that right now. I've looked around and it scares the hell out of me. You guys are the absolute best. See you later. See you tomorrow. Mañana.